Alrighty. Alrighty, everyone. I want to thank you ahead of time for tuning in. It's been a little while since I've had to say, or I have been able to say, this is Zay Talks, and I'm back with another episode because the Cowboys just broke my heart the last time I saw them. But this will be the start of kind of a new way I want to start doing things as I move forward. And that is going to be having video and a podcast going at the same time, both through my device and through the radio station I'm lucky to be able to use at my job. But I wasn't planning on starting back today because I know there's a few more things that I wanted to kind of get figured out before I started doing this. But I've been seeing a lot of talk about my team and the culture surrounding the Cowboys. And of course, I am not here by any means to defend Dallas because I have nothing to say positive about Dallas. I'm very critical of them right now. I'm very skeptical of them right now and the owners and the people in charge. But I see a pretty big push in the media right now that's got the trigger word of culture and talking about whether the Cowboys have a winning culture or not. And I've seen people take both sides and say, oh, well, they have a winning culture because they've won 12 games the past 3 seasons. And then I've also got the people that will say they don't have a winning culture because they haven't been to an NFC championship game. And what I can say is, aside from that being a debate, people are also debating about whose fault it is for this culture. And I'm only seeing the players get blame and Jerry Jones get blame. And I'm going to explain why Jerry Jones is partially the answer, but the players are not part of the answer. The big chunk of that answer is Mike McCarthy. And the reason why I was triggered enough to come in on my day off, well, I have work the second half of the day. I work 7 days a week. But the reason I was so triggered to come in on my day off during the daytime is because one of the biggest things, I know I don't have that many followers, but one of the biggest things I've been talking about ever since I first came into this room and sat right here and started podcasting with this platform, one of the first topics I attacked way before this last season started was the discipline and the penalties with the Cowboys. Now, this is something that culture does have a problem with, but I think discipline and culture, I think discipline's like a chunk of culture. So I think you can say that a team has a discipline issue, but they still have a good culture. So you can have a good culture amongst the players, but you can still be undisciplined because your coach is not good enough at being strict on reinforcing clean play. And that is the main issue with the Cowboys. It is not Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is the one who has given us a roster that produced the most All-Pros by a good little chunk in the whole NFL. We always are top of the league with the amount of Pro Bowlers we have selected. Dallas is always talented. Jerry Jones has done his part as far as the roster, but he's not doing his part as far as who's coaching the team. Because I said it all offseason, and I'll say it again. I've played football on many, many levels, and I've been on good teams, and I've been on terrible teams. I've been on great teams, and I've been on just almost a little below average teams. And one of the biggest differences that consistently is a factor is discipline and coaching. And whenever we had a coach that would realize we had maybe a lower amount of talent, he would be more strict on penalties, how clean we played. And the way he would do that was simple things. He would keep track of penalties in practice. And at the end of the practice, when everyone thinks that practice is over and we get to go home, no, it's not. We don't get to go home. We had 6 penalties in practice, and we got to fix those. So we got to run six sprints to pay for those 6 penalties. And tomorrow when we come in, it's going to be double the amount per penalty. It's that easy. I'm telling you, it is that easy. And it is not a big culture thing. It's just something that the head coach could just wake up today and say, you know what? for today's practice plan, we're going to eliminate penalties and make that the whole focus. If you can do that with middle school kids, high school kids, and even little league kids and get them to adjust and get them to stop making the same little small mistakes, because football is the same game at all levels. Yes, it gets faster and it's more intense, but it's the same rules. So if little kids can learn, I can't do that when this person does this. I can't do this until the whistle's blown. I can't do this until the ball moves. Little kids can understand that, then I guarantee grown-ups who are being paid millions for how good they are at the sport can get a hang on this thing. But the reason they're not able to is because the coaches are not reinforcing this. I was watching a Mike Tyson documentary, and it was about when he was in his prime. And even he was saying that his coach, it got to a point where him and his trainer were on the same page mentally. But even though he knew what he had to do, he knew how it had to look, he still needed somebody there to watch him and tell him if it looked correct, and someone there to push him and make sure he did it the correct way. And that's an individual sport. That's Mike Tyson in a boxing sport that's one-on-one. So imagine you got 11 people and you got to get them all to do the same thing and each of them not make the same mistake. Because football is a game of many positions. In each position, you got a different set of penalties that you're likely to get depending on what you're doing. Your cornerbacks got to worry about different things in your D-line. Your linebackers got to worry about different things in your quarterbacks, and your cornerbacks. It all varies. So what you need is a head coach that sets a standard. We will not be highly penalized. And I don't care what anyone tries to tell me. Mike McCarthy does not do that. And I got a little bit of proof of that because I pulled up something online. And if I'm correct, Mike McCarthy got there in 2021, right? 2020 and 2021. Since 2021, the Dallas Cowboys have the most penalties by a team with 346 penalties. Since 2021, the Cowboys have the most penalties in the NFL. And this is not like they were good one year, good a certain year, and then they just had an awful year of penalties. This is the case because they had penalties consistently all the time. All the time they had penalties. I mean, you look at this, you got the Cowboys, 346. Look at these teams that are next to them. In second place with 333 is the Arizona Cardinals. How many games have the Cardinals won? After that, you got Cleveland. They just became good. They've had talent, but they just became a team that you expect to win 10 games. They come behind with 329. Then you got the Titans with 324. They're not a very good team. Then you got the Jets with 318. They're not a good team. The Texans are just finally good this year. They're at 316. Then the Seahawks at 314. Then the Panthers at 314. These are not teams that you see going deep in the playoffs. So why would the Cowboys be going deep in the playoffs? And they're number one. Now keep in mind, 346 to 333. That's 13. That's a 13 gap difference. Second to third place is only a 5 gap difference. Third to fourth is only a 5 gap difference. So the gap from second to fifth is the same gap that Dallas is from first to second. And you're going to tell me that these guys should be going deep in the playoffs? One of the first things you learn as a football player is that penalties will kill your team. So how... I went on the same rant before this season just to see it all happen again. How can you go into an offseason as a head coach of an NFL football team and see the stat that your team led the NFL in penalties? So not only did you lose in the playoffs one of those years because you had a team record, it was either an NFL record or it was a team record for the most penalties in a playoff game. You have that going on and you go through an entire offseason and you make an offseason plan, you create a training camp schedule, you do all these things and you don't hone down on the penalties. He didn't do this after the first year. He didn't do it after the second year. He didn't do it after the third year. So we know he's not going to do it after this year. So that brings me to the point to say that the only hope is Mike Zimmer. The only hope is Mike Zimmer because he's a hard-nosed guy. He likes discipline. He's a very detailed person. So for those who don't understand, you may think that, okay, Mike Zimmer is just the defensive coordinator. But let me give you guys some insight. When training camp time comes, especially when it becomes training camp season, the players on offense and defense, it's not like they dislike each other, but there starts to become a little bit tension, a little bit of an edge because you're going against these guys because you're not going to get to go against another team. Yes, they have little joint practices, but for the most part, you're going against your own teammates. So there's a little bit of a beef enters the air. And that's not just with the players, it's with the coaches as well. So you got the coaches that are going to start getting competitive as well. So you're going to have Mike McCarthy calling plays, but you're going to have Mike Zimmer on defense leading the defense. So what's going to happen is Mike Zimmer is going to be the one in the film room at practice, putting the pressure on the defense to be disciplined, be detailed, no wasted steps, don't jump off sides, watch the ball, make sure you're good on the line of scrimmage with the ref, do all these things and stay disciplined. So what's going to happen is when practice time comes and Mike McCarthy's soft behind in that offense that has no discipline for any of the mistakes they have, I don't have to be in practice. I guarantee when the Cowboys start their team segment, if someone hops off false start, there's no punishment. It's just a oops, restart. If someone holds and tackles a defender because they got out of their stance late, there's no penalty. It's just move on with it. Whereas a good team, a coach might shut the whole drill down and say, hey, you go run. Like for a team like Dallas, you have to do those things because they've led the league in penalties every single year. They keep leading the league in penalties. But anyways, back to my point, you got Mike Zimmer. He's going to have his disciplined defense going against the undisciplined offense that's led by Mike McCarthy. And Mike Zimmer is going to outcompete the offense. They're going to be the ones not committing the penalties. It will all be on the offense. And then hopefully, we can go back to the culture word. Hopefully, the discipline will start to leak and the culture will become more disciplined. I don't think that they have a losing culture. They're just undisciplined. And that might seem like an oxymoron, but it does make sense because you can be so talented that you win games. But if you're talented and undisciplined, you're not going to win championships. You're not going to win playoff games. And you're not going to beat good coaches who have good disciplined teams. The 49ers are not going to go out there and just beat themselves. I mean, we saw special teams issues, but those were like muffed punts and things that are hard to control at times. We don't see the 49ers go out and get 5 penalties in a drive. We see Dallas do that. We don't see 49ers lose a game because they had a defensive pass interference call in the third quarter that messed up the momentum. That's a Dallas thing. It's always been a Dallas thing. And it needs to be more on the line than just losing a game. A player needs to feel like if I commit a penalty, I'm going to be running for 30 minutes out here. If I commit a penalty, I may get fined. I don't know if that's legal or not. I don't know if you can do that. If they can't do that legally, they need to do that under the table over at Dallas. Every penalty you get is $5,000 in practice. In a game, it's $10,000. $5,000 per penalty in practice, $10,000 per penalty in a game. And I bet you Dallas will go from first on this list to 15th max. Who wants to bet me? Who wants to bet me on it? I'm telling you how an athlete's mind works. You're already focused on so many things. You're already locked in on so many things. It's up to your coach to let you go out, be loose, try to be yourself, and then he kind of carves the sculpture. As a player, you should not be having to carve your own sculpture. I won't get too into it, but I mean, sheesh, that was my issue my last few years of college. Really, the whole time I was in college. Aside from maybe a little bit in 2021. But I always felt like I had to be the one to go watch myself and correct myself because I felt like I wasn't able to get coached maybe the way I wanted to get coached to help me improve. And I think that when you're an NFL player and you have NFL level coaches, I think that that should be a standard that should definitely be set. Because I was at a division two. I was at a junior college. So you get what you get sometimes in those situations. Like you guys are where you are for a reason. But when you're at a division one or an NFL team, it's like, come on. Nick, there's a lot of people that want your spot. There's a lot of people that want your job. Why do you get to just have players that are lackadaisical, aren't disciplined? Like, what are you there for? What are you getting paid for? If it's on Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott to lead this team, then what is Mike McCarthy there for? And I'm being serious. I'm not trying to be a Stephen A. Smith. I'm not trying to be a Shannon Sharp. Really, though, like, he's not stopping penalties. He's not enforcing any rules. All he's doing is saying after the game, he's just saying stay consistent or stay the course. Yes, he did a great job calling plays. I give it to him. He did a good job calling plays, but maybe he needs to be the offensive coordinator, and we need to get somebody because the players. Shannon Sharp. I saw him earlier. He was talking about what Micah and D-Law said, and he's like, "Oh, the Cowboys don't have a winning culture because of what the player said. What the player said." No one's talking about what Mike McCarthy said. Everyone's giving him a pass. He deserves all of this heat. He deserves all of the heat. CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott not being on the same page, that's on McCarthy. They are humans playing in the biggest games of their life. They're going to have nerves. They're going to have butterflies. They're going to have these things. Not everyone's built like Tom Brady and just gets numb in those moments. Not everyone's built that way. But you know what helps players that get nervous? You know what helps players that may overthink like a Dak Prescott or might help somebody stay in the moment like a CeeDee Lamb who got pissed off after the first drive? Is a good coach. A good coach. A coach that teaches discipline and that is steady and has a standard that is set here, and he forces you to maintain that standard and keep that standard. Because what that does is, no matter it's week 3, week 7, week 13, or is a second playoff game, and you guys either got a first round bye or you want a playoff game and you're feeling high on yourself. It does not matter which one of those games it is. You guys are going to go out and take this step at this time, throw this pass at that time, move this foot when this does this, do that when that does that. 1-2, 1-2, left foot, right foot. It's that simple. When you have a coach that can simplify things that well for you and just make it so you know what? I know this guy overthinks, so he's going to do this, boom, boom, boom. He's going to do this, boom, boom, boom. And we're going to do that this whole week so that it is natural and it is fluid, and that is all he knows. Dallas does not do that. I'm telling you, they don't do it. They don't make adjustments. We saw it in the middle of the playoff game versus the Packers. They don't make adjustments. It's irritating. It's irritating. And then, everyone's talking about, oh, do they have a culture issue? Culture. It's discipline, man. It's discipline. They have a penalty issue. I heard Micah say it. And I wish to God that I had a bigger platform, because Micah was the first person that I heard say it other than me. And I got the receipts. You can go to Apple Podcasts. I'll put the link below. Or you may be listening to this on Apple Podcasts already. On my Apple Podcasts, I have earlier in July, I made a whole video about this. They need to run sprints after penalties. They need to just go off and run. You get a penalty in practice, go run. And that's what I finally heard Micah say on his podcast with CeeDee Lamb. He said, you know what, man? It was the same things all year that came back to bite us. He said, next year, one of us hop off sides, we just going to run. I ain't see nobody pay attention to him saying that. You guys don't understand. That little thing right there can flip this whole situation around. If those players, as soon as they commit a penalty in practice, they just go run, I am telling you, that is a small little feather that can break the camel's back. Because what that does is that gives Dallas almost like 14 more points again. How many times do we see Dallas huge run called back penalty, big stop, first down, defensive holding? It's every game. It's every game. It don't matter when it happens. It usually starts at the beginning of the game. But at some point, it always happens where we're sitting there like, are these guys going to get this together? Like, is this going to get fixed? Is this just going to happen every week? Do they care? Like, people getting penalties and stay in the game. Like, hop off sides and they just stay in the game. They don't even look at the sideline. The defensive coordinator, Mike McCarthy, won't even have reactions to 3rd and 13s being extended because of a defensive holding, and there's just no reaction on the sideline. We should see that coach. If that happens next year, I better see Mike Zimmer in a whole little situation where he might get suspended because he grabbed a player by the throat. I'll believe Mike Zimmer is here to change things. If I can see him when somebody commits a penalty, if I can see Mike Zimmer run over there, he's a little dude. If I can see little old Mike Zimmer come down from the booth, I don't know if he stands on the sideline or he hangs out upstairs. If he's upstairs, I want to see him come down from the booth and grab a player by the ear and pull him over to behind the tent and just cuss him out. And I say, okay, now we're going to the Super Bowl. It's too comfortable in Dallas. It's way too comfortable in Dallas. They need a hard nose. Dallas right now is the perfect example of kids nowadays. And I know I may be considered a kid nowadays. I'm only 26 years old. But I tell you what, I still had old school enough parents to know the difference between discipline and non-discipline. I know the difference between soft and not soft. And the Cowboys they're spoon-fed. They're spoon-fed. The Cowboys what they are is they are that kid who gets through school because his parents are rich. But then when he hits high school, he's got to take the ACT, he bombs it. That's the Cowboys. They got the nice house. Everybody comes and parties at their house all year. All the girls love going to the Cowboys house. Until it comes time for people to say, okay, it's March. Senior year, March. What college we going to? What we going to do after high school? We can't just be bums. We got to check our scores. We got to check our ACT scores, GPAs. All that fun's over and the rubber meets the road. What have you been doing? What have you been doing while you've been having fun? You've been having fun the right way, or you've been having fun with things that ain't going to get you far in life along the way? And in the Cowboys' case, they have fun missing a few homework assignments. They have fun sleeping in on Mondays. The Cowboys show up to the game late on Saturdays because they were drinking the night before, but they were still talented, so they balled out. That's Dallas. You get the point. And then when it's time for the rubber to meet the road and all that don't work, it's nothing. And in the kid's case, who does that fall on? The parents. In the Cowboys' case, who's it fall on? The coach. It don't fall on the grandparents. It falls on the parent. It falls on the one that's directly connected to the player, to the source. That is who is at fault. It's that simple. The only fault Jerry gets is, why is he still here? That is the criticism of Jerry Jones. Is why is this guy still here? Why have you not put somebody here that is disciplined? How do you not understand? I'm sitting here looking at it on my computer screen. Since 2021, the Dallas Cowboys have the most penalties by a team with 346 penalties. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So until that changes, don't expect to see much change in the results. It's just that simple. So Mike Zimmer is a hope we'll be able to see during training camp. We'll be able to see during training camp if Mike Zimmer having a disciplined defense is really going to have an effect on the Cowboys, you know? So we'll see. Only time will tell. We got a long time before then. But I'm really interested. I'm not seeing enough videos on the running back situation and who you guys think will end up on the Dallas Cowboys, because nothing gets me more excited than when my team is in the market for a star running back, because a Cowboys team that is a star running back is a very, very fun and comforting Cowboys team to watch. We know we're going to get. We don't got to worry about too much. All we got to just hope is that no one gets hurt. You know, I'm ready to live that life. I liked the way Dak played last year. I liked the explosiveness. But I want to see King Henry. Zay talks out. Stay tuned, guys. See ya.